Welcome back, House of Mastery, your host, Abad Gomez, and today's guest is going to be one of my friends, David Figg, a community member, a community leader here in the city of Oxnard, Ventura County. Thank you again for actually hosting us, because this is your studio here in the House of Gains Oxnard location. Thank you again for spending time with us and allowing us to sit down with you and just pick your brain and talk a little bit about what's going on, get a little bit of perspective and just an idea of how you work. I'll be clear with you, David. I really want to get your ideas on what's going on in the community. You've heard it. A lot of people, a lot of our viewers know it. And I really just want to pick your brain on this, talk a little bit about what's going on in the business, talk a little bit about kind of just how you were raised, your values. But for people that don't know who you are, if you could share a little bit about that.
Yeah, dude, I'm super excited. I appreciate, obviously you coming to our house and being able to do this. So I'm being, featured on your podcast. So I'm excited because this is definitely a little bit different than what other podcasts that I've done. Usually it's more about like solely the gym. So yeah. I'm pretty excited just to kind of dive into all those things. So I'm glad to be here. Real quick, if you turn that mic towards you a little bit, just so it's facing you, like how instead of like this, there we go. So that way it doesn't catch me talking as well. So
sounds good.
So whatever you want to do, I'm down to jump into whatever, bro. So,
for sure, David. So one of the things that I really wanted to talk about is that one is I admire your consistency. I admire how you love doing the boring things. I want to talk about that first because I've seen you in the gym, and I don't have I know you for quite a while, for 2 years. But what I've noticed here in the gym, that you're constantly just doing the boring things. And as an owner operator, I see that I'm just like, man, you could learn a lot from this guy. And we'll jump a little bit about other stuff, why I believe I have a different perspective about you and how you showcase your leadership and overall your values as a person. So just tell me a little bit about kind of just how you run your business, how you are so consistent with just doing the boring stuff, and how you don't let the noise get to you and, start doing like a bunch of random stuff, because at this point of your life, you could possibly do that. You're very young. So tell me a little bit about that first, and then we'll dig into the fun stuff.
Cool. Well, I don't think that there's, I just want to like preface it and first say like I have dabbled in, I shouldn't say dabbled, but I have like accidentally found myself doing things that really didn't do much for us. Yeah. So, you can even ask Sal, who's done our videos. Like we've done videos that like, it's like, why am I doing this? Like we should be focusing back on these videos that produced this outcome, that did these things. So I definitely want to say like, I've only ever done the boring work because I have accidentally found myself falling off track before. So that's definitely happened. But, it kind of boils down to just a couple different things. And the first one is, and this is going to kind of sound, whether you want to call it psychotic or whatever you want to call it. But I wake up every day, and usually I wake up not in the best mood, unfortunately. I usually wake up, you can ask my wife, like I wake up usually in a like get the fuck to work type of mood. And you can ask her, like I'm not the type of person, I wake up and we kind of cuddle in bed and we lay there. Dude, when I'm up and I'm awake, I'm like, I look at her and I'm like, wake the fuck up. Like I got to fucking go. Like, and it doesn't come from like a motivation standpoint. As I wake up and I'm like, I'm not where the fuck I want to be. Like I always am kind of like beating myself up, where it's like my bank account doesn't look how I want it to look, and my life doesn't look how I want it to look, and my family doesn't have the freedom that I want them to have, and that type of thing. And so I think that automatically, like I really do, and maybe I'm downplaying it because I am really hard on myself, like more than probably what most people think. And so I always say that's the first thing, is like I know that if I don't get up and do the shit that I need to get done, not that I want to get done, but the things that I need to get done, we're just not going to get to the places that we want to get to. So that's like the first thing. And then I would say the second thing is, and I learned this just like, one of my favorite sayings is that we're taught everything, or we learn everything. We don't just have all the information. So the things that I talk about, it's not like I just fucking intuitively knew everything. It's a lot of the stuff, almost everything I've been taught, And so one of the things that has just been kind of, if you look at the generalities of like all the podcasts, all the personal development, all the books, is that there's a lot of like commonalities between a lot of them. And one of the most important things I've learned from all the business books and all leadership books is you just got to follow through with the things you're supposed to be doing. And so, a lot of people, I see it a lot as a coach, coaching hundreds of people, is that I was just having this conversation with my wife the other day, is that people like they'll track their food and they'll be on their meal plan and they'll do the cardio and they'll do the workouts for 3 or 4 months, and they get to where they want to get to and they look fantastic, and then they'll be like, okay, I'm done coaching. And I'm like, okay, and I try to do my best to keep them as a client because I know what's going to happen. And they're like, no, I got to where I want to go to, and then they stop doing it. They stop coaching, but more importantly, they stop doing the things that got them there. And so there's this paradox of like, the actions that I did that led me to this result well, I got the result, so now I'm going to start doing the actions that led me there. But in reality, that's just going to get you back off track. So I know that the things that we do here with our team, some of the systems that we have in place of learning people's names and doing the other things, those are the things that have gotten us to where we're at. So now that's baseline. So it's like now we have to continue to do those things with every team member that we hire, with every member that comes in, that type of thing. Is like this is our new baseline now. So now that we've established our baseline and the things that we've tried have worked, how do we keep those, systematize those so that we can be more efficient and not stop doing those? And then now we get to do the fun things. We get to do the events and the giveaways and, those type of things, and the member and the team, things, the gatherings and that type of stuff, give back. Like those are all additional things. Like one thing we tell, our team a lot is, well, we have to do the boring work. Like if you are off by 1%, like that is what will lead you to your demise. Whether it's a year, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years. You look at Starbucks as a great example. Is like, they were all about being learning their customers' names, allowing people to lounge around and in the lobby, and then all of a sudden they've kind of gotten away from that. It's like very fast-paced, quick, in and out, don't meet, don't talk to people, that type of thing. A lot of that changed during COVID, but now look at them. They just announced last month they're closing another 1,000 stores because they're not profitable. And so, I'm not saying their company's I can't say that I'm fucking a magician. Like they're way smarter than I am. But you look at the patterns of like, well, what did they get away from? They got away from the basics of learning people's names and talking to them and what their business was founded on. So Amazon was founded on, they weren't founded on customer service. Amazon doesn't have the best customer service, but they were founded on convenience. And so they have kept convenience at every single step of their growth. They've never gotten away from convenience. And because of that, they continue to grow.
Got it.
So it's just the boring work is just the shit that needs to get done. That's our baseline.
That's it. The boring work has to get done.
Yeah.
And doing the right thing overall, that's one of the things we talked about before. Before we continue, I want to make sure that just so you could, I've talked to you before, David, and I know sometimes you just get in the rant off. I just want to let you know that if I interrupt you, it's not just because I want to go back to like one of the things that you did touch on. The lack of accountability. That's a big thing. Yeah. And what I've learned in my position and what I've understood, it has to do with like kind of the values that you grew up in. There's a sense of accountability that you're not keeping yourself accountable. Like for myself, what I found out is like naturally I like to break rules. And because I don't want to stay accountable to something. Yeah. Naturally, you want to be breaking rules because you don't want to be accountable for your own actions. And I think that's when it goes back to like what you talked about, kind of like that saying that says, hey, you know what? The blind person, as soon as he can see, he let go of what is the thing called?
The walking stick.
The walking stick. This thing has been helping you the whole time, and then you just let it go because now I can see, right? Mm-hmm. And it's essentially what you talk about your coaching. Most of the people that are in coaching, they go in your coaching program. Yeah. They're like, I hit the goal. All right, this guy, he's out. And they don't understand that this guy was the one that helped you stay accountable, and maybe what you needed was that sense of accountability.
100%.
The mindset that you have just overall, and just looking at kind of just looking at everything, every single process in every single business, which is really something that I look at, where you process different issues. So when you talk about Amazon, you talk about Starbucks, you talk about these things. And what I've realized is that you go back to the same thing. It's just the systems that work and how you can pass them down, and how you talked a little bit. I think you picked on it a little bit, but you didn't go through it. It's just kind of like you've dwelled yourself into it. So you got into the boring work, you continue to do it, and then you notice, which I assume, or you could give me a little bit just what do you, your thoughts is like, you notice that, hey, maybe I shouldn't be doing this, and maybe I should pass it down to somebody and create a system for it. Is that something that you kind of noticed?
Yeah, I mean, I think naturally, if our business wants to grow, and this is frankly with any business really, is that like, and this is again something I learned from other people, is like you can't be doing all the same tasks every day and continue to load your plate up more and more and more. There's just like physically, there's just not enough time in the day. It's just impossible.
Yeah.
And so there's things that you have to. I hate to use the word delegate because it just sounds so negative, but there's things like to me, it's more of like one of the best rules I always learn is if there's one, there's two. And so basically what that means is that if there's one manager, there needs to be a second person who knows how to do everything the manager is doing. Because technically, right, if we look at business in total, it should be, I consider it like a positive feedback loop, which is if everyone is doing what they should be doing, like, one of the biggest things that we talk about in our teams is like Larissa's job, our manager, her job, and not to sound like this shouldn't sound misogynistic or bad, her job is to make my life easier. Because my job is to grow the business so that I can continue to pay her more, pay our team more, to grow our business. That's my job. And so if my plate is full with all these things, not saying I can't, like I just changed the urinal filter, 2 weeks ago. If I can jump in and help the team, I'm going to do it any way, shape, or possible. But her job is to make my life easier. And then her team is to make her life easier so that she can take on more impactful, meaningful tasks. And then the team's job is to make their lives easier for each other. And so as a positive feedback loop, if we're all doing the things that we're supposed to be doing, well, guess what happens? I mean, it's pretty simple. We gain more customers, we earn more money, they get paid more. If I'm a responsible owner, I'm going to pay them more. If I'm greedy, I'm gonna hoard all the money. But no matter what, my business can't grow if I hoard all the money. My team's going to leave me. I have to pay them more, and so and I want to pay them more, and so. I would definitely say like that's one of the biggest things I've learned is like it's not about just passing tasks off. It's like Larissa and I and Victoria and I, we sit down and we talk about what specific tasks do we give specific people, and we look at like the puzzle pieces. Like right now we're opening a second location, so it's like who do we want to go to the second location, who do we want to stay here, and how are each one of them going to grow individually? Now they're going to be separate, and what's the best move? Should we take this person here? Should we move this? It's like all puzzle pieces, but we look like 10 steps down the line of like how is this move now going to position them to become a better leader, grow the business, grow themselves, grow their teams. And so it's not really about just like delegating. Hey, I don't want to fucking sweep anymore. I don't want to vacuum anymore. I actually enjoy vacuuming the gym. I like my little Milwaukee backpack. But it's all about like what tasks should I be giving them so they can grow as individuals and as team members. So I think that's one of the biggest things is like, I found myself like always doing the things more and more and more. And I just realized like, bro, I can't, like, dude, I cannot, like, dude, this morning, like, I'm getting calls from my contractor, from electrician, from fire sprinkler guys. And like, how can I do that if I'm at the front desk having to do a sign up with somebody? I'm missing phone calls. I'm missing those things. And so I'm holding my team back because if my business can't grow, they're never going to get paid more. They're never going to grow. So it's unfair to all of us if I continue to do those small, little, minute tasks.
That's true. I agree with you, David, because I've gone through the same kind of course with my business. But one of the things that I've understood about people is if they feel a sense of guilt is because they have consciousness and awareness. And it just shows that you're a good person.
Dude, that's what I've understood. Amen to that, bro. 100%.
That's what I've learned from
Amen,
just
bro.
overall, my intention for this podcast was just the curiosity of people, just being able to get a different perspective. Going into that, I know we talked a little bit of what you're doing, man. You're doing great things, and I think most of the community understands that, But going back to the guilt, the consciousness, awareness, lack of accountability, those are things that I believe that you learn in your upbringing. Talking about that, going into what's going on in our area here in Oxnard, Ventura County with, just the ICE rates, how everybody's kind of just being more aware of what can, in a way for me, giving you a little bit more insight. So my family's from Oaxaca, Mexico. Growing up, it was a little different for me because I wouldn't say it's like when it goes back to like kind of justifying your idea why it was different, but it was the stereotype that you were pigeonholed into. It was just like, oh, he's from Oaxaca. They all live together. They're dark brown, short, and they're just kind of dirty people. So even from your own race. Even from the own Mexicans, they're like, oh, dude, Oaxaquita, pinche Oaxaquita.
Bad,
and it's like, you start seeing that. And as you start growing up, you kind of just get that tough skin. Kind of like what we were talking a little bit earlier before, right? But you start really seeing, is it really what the media is telling you? Or is it really just a person? Because I could see a person, going out there and, protesting. But if they see somebody that is, dark brown or just, are they really helping them out? And, I'm not saying that, whatever the case people are doing, but what I came to understand is I define the person by what they do and how they are. If they're good people based on how they treat other people, and that's how I've kind of understood it myself. Growing up in this area, you're like, how I see it, you're like I would probably say it's like commodity, right? You're rare, bro. Over here in Ventura County, like growing up, Haycox Elementary School, bro, my whole class from like kindergarten to like possibly 5th grade, that's when I got into like I was in bilingual classes. So most of the kids that were in my class, bro, they're all Mexican. They all grew up in the same neighborhood as I did. They're my neighbors and stuff. Until 5th grade, I got into a full English class. That's when I got like my first black friend. And
Yeah.
I was fucking shocked, bro.
Yeah.
When I got my first white friend. You know, for me, some people, I was like, damn, you know, there's a white kid here. You know,
Yeah.
like for me, it was like, oh shit, daddy, there's a white kid in my
Yeah.
class, you know? There's a black kid in my class. Growing up in your area, you grew up in Port Hueneme.
Yeah.
How was it for you, bro? Like, how was it for you? Because it's totally
Yeah.
different.
Well, in what way? Like when you ask how was it, like it just the upbringing in general? Because
Well, one, I know. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a different story than what most people think, because I think that white people are generalized as privileged people.
Yeah.
You know, that's just kind of how the generalization is, and it is what it is. And I know you and I talked a little bit before we started recording, and just kind of about that. But I think it's you know, I don't want to anything they say. I don't want to like make it sound like a victim mentality, but I'm going to do the opposite right now, which is talk about the blessings of growing up in, you know, in Oxnard and, you know, Hueneme and South Oxnard, because I went to school in, you know, Bard, Eel Green, Hueneme, South Oxnard, you know, like basically kind of our stomping grounds.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think it was a blessing being able to grow up in basically, you know, it was like I think it was like 95% Mexican school system, you know, and then, you know, 1% was white, 3% was like Filipino, you know. So I think that it was a blessing more than anything else, because like, dude, like I enjoy the Mexican culture, bro. I like fucking wearing my Tejana, my fucking boots, and like, you know, doing those things. And definitely my wife has been my biggest influence on those things, because, you know, she's full Mexican. So she's from Zacatecas. So that's, I think, you know, it's a blessing more than anything, because I get to experience cultures. And I actually find myself, and just to go back what you were saying about, like, you know, sometimes races are harder on their own people. And I do find myself sometimes, like, you know, if I'm over the hill, you know, in a more luxury area, if we're like, you know, going somewhere or visiting or shopping somewhere, I'm always like, dude, like, white people kind of make me uncomfortable, dude. Like, you know, I hear it sometimes the way they talk, you know, not everyone, but some of the more, like, privileged areas, or not privileged, but, like, higher income areas, I can find them being kind of, like, assertive and things where I'm like, it's not, you know, it's not super cool. And so, you know, I think it's a blessing. Where we grew up from first grade until, you know, where my mom lives still, it's like literally right next door to Section 8. So I mean, like when I say right next door, I mean like it is up against Section 8. So like all of my black friends, like we have black friends over all the time at our house. You know, and I still talk to them like on Instagram all the time. Like I see them all the time when I go to the neighborhood, like, you know. And so like I had a lot of black friends and a lot of Mexican friends, and you know, all my best friends are Mexican. They're still Mexican. You know, and so I had one white friend. You know, his name was Willie. He's a plumber. You know, it's not like it's not like he fucking grew up in a, you know, a household with a Lamborghini and nice things. Like, you know, his dad was a surfer, taxi driver, and so like it wasn't like people just assume because my skin color is white that we grew up in some luxurious fucking privileged area.
And I think that's where I wanted to talk a little bit. But why do you think the ideology is? You know, because if you go to Mexico, bro, like if you go to Mexico City, you get that too. Like you go to Mexico City, like bougie places. There's like they call them mi reis. Like they call them like, you know, they're these like these people that are just like high fancy. They won't talk to you. Like if you're eating, they dress a different way. They talk a different way. And it's great when you're like, oh shoot, they've done very well for themselves, or they've put themselves in a position where you're like, oh shoot, you kind of want to, I guess, put your children in a position where they can be around these type of people, because they have different conversations, man. I don't take away from that. But where it comes down to you, like, why do you think that ideology comes from? Like they see somebody your skin and you're like, man, this guy got it done.
I don't want to go down the rabbit hole too much, but I think there's two things. I think there's two really, really important things. I think one, which I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole, which is just you know, society and the bigger plan in general. You know, media, social media, and I don't want to go down all of that rabbit hole and how people are convinced that, you know, white people are terrible and this and that. That's like the one side, which I think has a huge control over people's brains because we're so addicted to our phones. I think the second thing is just a natural human tendency. I don't think it has anything to do with race. I just think naturally as humans, we are more addicted to victim mentality. I mean, think about it. You know, when you go to a family party, you want to hear the bad things. Oh, did you hear this? Did you hear this? But when someone says like, oh, I bought a new car, or oh, I got this new job, this new raise, nobody wants to hear about that. And so, and it's a terrible thing. But when you do get around those people, like you said, you know, the people who have done well for themselves in any race, between themselves, they don't talk about bad things. They talk about positive things. So in reality, the people who are hating, you know, or they're looking for the negative feedback, those people they will never become successful because they're always looking for the negative and everything. And so I don't think it has specifically to do with anything racially biased. I think just naturally as human beings, as humans, we naturally are, more attracted or more addicted to the negative gossip. I mean, that's why we don't have news stations that just put out positive fucking news. We don't have those things. There's a reason why the negative sells. So I think that's what it is. I think just naturally, it has nothing to do with race. I think it just naturally, as humans, we're just more inclined to want to hear the negative things.
Got it.
So
Got it. Yeah, you start kind of going into like the Mexican culture is kind of like, oh, like the chismes, the tias talking about
100%.
A bunch of stuff. He's like, he's doing good. Oh, he's a narco. He's doing good because he's this, right? And it comes down to like, I feel in a way is also just kind of like what I think you hit it off with the news is like what they're selling to you. And I guess my awareness to people out there in our community is don't get so sold on the news. Don't get so sold on like what people can be and sit down with people and be able to have conversations like this. And I feel like it's failed because growing up, in the area, bro, I remember making fun of like any race. And it was just the way that you grew up. It's like,
well, but that's so that goes back to point number one, which is society, what their general plan is, and and what do you think the number one thing they attacked during COVID the last 4 years was comedy. They didn't you can't talk about that. Oh, you can't make a joke about that because, dude, if think about it in our personal lives, if I can't make fun of myself, if we can't make fun of all of our friends, if we can't have group chats where we're fucking around and like being stupid, well then if there's no comic relief, bro, then everything is so tense. There's no ability for self-reflection. I'm gonna continue to make fun of myself, and because without humor, without those things, we have no ability to be able to like self-reflect, on anything. Because let's be honest, bro. Fucking stereotypes are fucking funny for a reason because there's some fucking truth in them, bro. Not all of them, and some of them are taken too far. But majority of comedy is pretty fucking funny because it's true. So I think that's one of the things that we've gotten away from is like you said, is like, dude, we grew up, we used to make fun of everybody. Kids don't look at skin color and like actually have a racist mindset. They just fucking make fun of each other, bro. That's just how it is. And my best friends are ones where like if you look at our text messages to each other, we're fucking bullies to each other. But like we got each other's back any day, any day for whatever reason, And so I think that one of the things they try to get us to stop doing is making fun of each other. We need that humor, bro. Like we do. Like, dude, I fucking hate you, bro. Like,
well, I don't feel that about you, bro. But
so now we got liars on the fucking show. I'm just kidding.
No, but if you feel that way, I mean,
yeah,
I'm messing with you, David.
We can cut this short.
Yeah. You know what? Cut it out. This guy just,
I'm out of here.
Yeah. Hey, bro. But what you talk about right now is just pinpointing, going back to like a little bit about how you were raised and how you could be seen. I think I still want to go in a little bit deeper and a little bit of what we talked about, kind of just when you were because what you've done, many people, and I'm not saying just like many people, I'm just saying kind of like what your perception, because based on what I understood or getting to know you, your conservative values. You have very conservative values. So
that's
in a way,
that's what people perceive.
Yeah, there we go. You have very conservative values. What people can perceive, right?
Yeah.
You just said you got that right. Because of like
my skin color.
You like guns, kind of just that perception of when you look at somebody that's very conservative is like they like free to ride arms, all these things. I'm not a political person. I'm trying to get more aware of and understanding the politics and everything, right? What I started getting to understand a little bit more is that the laws. I really have to get more aware of like what's going on in my state, right? But going back to you is just when you're going that way or you're perceived that way, and then you marry a girl that's Mexican, you get a different perspective. You get a whole different perception. You're like, oh shit, it is totally different, or there is a different kind of upbringing, right? And when you come that together, I see you more moving to the middle, and you're kind of understanding both sides. When did it come to you that you're just like, okay, this is not going like the way that I thought it was gonna go? You were very vocal when you were for the elections. I was like very kind of like a propaganda based, and like I felt like it was the right decision as well, going where we're at right now. And then everything that's going, you kind of just sit down and you're like, fuck, damn, like, oh shit. Like it's affecting a lot of the people in my community. It is kind of gives you like it goes back to like the humanity, right? Consciousness and awareness. You're like, oh shit. Like what's going on? What's happening? Now we don't know all the details, but was that kind of like a where you felt like, hey, you know what, like, oh shit, like maybe it's not the right direction that we're going? Because we could look at it the bigger picture, but here in your community, how did you take it?
Well, I think it all comes down to, like, I know a lot of people, they consider me to be a conservative person, and I think that's mainly because their bias is one side only is right. And I don't specifically judge one side, is technically quote unquote better than the other. I just look at it's just in business, bro, it's data. What are the outcomes based on their actions? And so that's kind of what I look at is like, okay, we look at COVID, even if you want to look at that prior to that, out of the last, 2 decades of presidencies, where has our country gotten better or worse? And who is going to stand up and provide some sort of change in plan that would lead us down a more positive road? And after the 2020 to 2024 cabinet with Biden and his cabinet, like, our country was in a significantly worse place than where it was. And so I didn't look at it specifically as like left versus right. Never once in any of my posts was it left versus right. It was never Republicans are better than Democrats and blah, blah, blah. It was always, this is what happened. This is what I think needs to happen. And based on track record, I don't think that Kamala, who was running, was the right person. Just based on her track record alone, there was no way, shape, or form, if you looked at it on a data sheet, for it to make any sense. And so, and I definitely wasn't one of those people that, like, I don't hang my hat on one specific person. And so that's why I think people were surprised or are surprised when I called Trump out, you've seen my posts on Instagram and stuff, because it wasn't necessarily that, like, I started to shift where I was more conservative and then I'm less conservative.
No.
It's just more like I just take a stand back and I just look at who's saying what their track record is, what they believe in. Like, dude, I'm a huge person against Marco Rubio and, Ted Cruz and all these people. Like, bro, these fucking terrible people. Yeah. Like, what the fuck we, like, I wasn't even, when you painted my house a couple years back, I told you I didn't even like DeSantis that much.
Yeah.
And so, like, there's a lot of times where people just, they see me make one post that disagrees with them and they generalize me as just some crazy conservative.
Yeah.
And so I think when you take a step back, like, I have been, just as I was with Biden, I think I've been pretty spot on with when someone fucks up, I call them out for it. Yeah. Like, I've made dozens of posts about what's going on with our administration now. And, dude, I'll say it again on camera. Like, up until now, when he has taken his seat as president, Trump has done a fucking terrible job with our country. And not even just economic growth. He says, the economy is better than ever. Well, the stock market is, but not the American lives, not our cost of groceries and our cost of gas. It's still the same it was when you took presidency. So, and that's just a very small host of issues. Yeah. But I just think people, like, generally, like, but I still believe if we give up our constitutional right to bear arms, there's a reason why our country is the only country that can't be invaded, because there's more guns per capita than anywhere else in the world. And a lot of people see it as like, oh, well, we need, dude, guns are not there to have fun and shoot. They're to defend us against our own government. And so that's where I think people get that wrong, is that, like, people think that we're just some gun freaks, and it's like, well, let's understand what it was actually created for. And so I think just people, like, dude, naturally what happened yesterday with the Mandami being elected in New York, I think that's a terrible idea. It doesn't matter about left or right, but some people will completely, and I think Cuomo, who was running against, fucking terrible. I don't like Cuomo. During COVID, he did the same thing that, our governor did to us. And so, but I don't think that socialism is the right lane to go down. I think my prediction is it's a much more negative path to go down. And so, again, I don't look at it as like who's left, who's right. I look at it as like, what policies are you proposing? What policies is proposing? Let's look at your backgrounds. Where have you taken, your careers thus far and what positive impacts you had? And then let's look at where you say you're going to take us. Now, and like you said, accountability. Like, Trump hasn't done anything, bro. And so I won't get into the details because I want to, like, make this longer than it needs to be. Of course. But he's done a terrible job. I mean, it's pretty simple. But then again, people still generalize me as, I just got an email like 2 weeks ago telling you guys about, how I'm racist and blah, 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 this and that. Like, dude, come have coffee with me. Yeah. Come sit down with me. Let's talk about our views, and you're probably going to be like, holy shit, this dude agrees on a lot more than what I thought, And so it's I just don't think that people want to take the time to do that. And one thing that I try to do on social media, which I think has led me down this path of being generalized, is it's more about critical thinking than anything else. You've seen my stories. I've criticized critical thinking, the lack of critical thinking, a lot in the last 6 years, because I think that people have lost the ability to critically think on, if we do this, let's try to look 10, 20 steps down the road, and where might this lead us, you know? And so that's kind of where I think people get caught up, is that it's I'm not pointing out it has to be right, it has to be left. It's like, let's look at what is happening, and let's critically think about, well, what has history shown? And then what do we think is actually going to happen? Instead of it just being so, I don't really care what the other side says, I'm just going to vote for the side that I think should win. Well, it's like, well, like, dude, let's look at the actual data. Let's look at history. Let's look at what we think might actually happen. So I don't know if that did that go off tangent? Did that answer the question you had in the beginning?
It goes aligned with what I think. What I got from it is the conservative values, I believe, is based on my understanding of conservative values is just kind of like the man works, the woman stays at home or helps with the home, and it's kind of just go back to the Bible, kind of just aligns with what they're the man's the breadwinner, he comes back, the woman stays and take care of the home, take care of the children, kind of my ideology, right? But
well, let me ask you this, because this is something really important, because when we say conservative, let's take the political association of the word conservative out of it.
Yeah, that's,
you know,
that's
so
what
conservative, like they've taken the word conservative and they've glued it
to Republican,
right?
Yeah.
So if we take conservative away from Republican, let's just say conservative as a whole, as a family, right? And this is what my wife and I talk about, Victoria and I talk about all the time. Well, when you look at like the Mexican Hispanic culture,
they're
all conservative, right? Like,
that's where I was going to go.
God,
with,
Catholicism, Christianity, the family, you know, and which is not bad. It's not wrong.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I do think that we've gotten away from the familiar values that I think made us a successful country. This goes back to the boring work, which is the things that we did in the beginning that got us here successfully. Why are we going away from this?
And that's where I get really, for me, that's where I believe I agree with your point on just kind of like where the parties are very different, and understanding where like one is leaning, and based on how I was raised, I guess I have the privilege that I was born here. I didn't ask for it. My parents, hey, you know, they're like, you know what?
The cards you're dealt, bro.
That's it. So I could understand another perspective from somebody that wasn't born here and what they have to deal with, but I will never really be able to go through it because I wasn't dealt with that card. So at this point where I'm coming from is just kind of like I get a chance to go to Mexico all the time. And for a lot of the people that, you know, attest to the Mexican, what I would probably challenge you is go visit Mexico, go see how they live, go to like, you know, the small towns, small pueblos, and really understand their style of living, bro, because my family is from Oaxaca, Mexico. And going back again, right? So the town where we live, bro, like, you know, it's becoming a little bit more modern because they got, you know, now we got concrete on the road. You know, before we used to have dirt,
crazy.
You know?
The industrialization.
Industrialization. And you start really seeing how like the politics and the governance start really going into the people, but it reflects onto the people, bro. That's where I started really capturing. So a little bit about my background. My dad wasn't like he became the youngest agente municipal, so basically the president of the town, kind of like the mayor.
That's what it sounds
he became
like,
the youngest president at 24.
That's fucking awesome.
And when he was there, bro, he just kind of just got a love of just, I guess, politics overall, you know? So like growing up, he always gave me this kind of just like the ideology of what's going on in his town all the time, bro. Anytime that we would work together, I would just hear my dad. And growing up, I always remember, and he could attest it to it. You know, if you ever get a chance to meet him, I would always give him just kind of like the devil's advocate kind of just idea. I'm like, hey, Dad, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? I would never really believed in the idea. I was always kind of just thinking, it's like, why do you think they do that? My curiosity was just like, why are these people doing that? And I go back to this to bring you back to like the Democratic Party. I believe that they're going way too far out. I agree. Like we're coming about globally. I believe that USA should be number one. And how 100%. It's looking at right now, we're not. It's becoming a lot more difficult for us. China's coming up, Russia's coming up, and it's becoming a lot more difficult for US. Why? Because the beliefs that we keep on putting into our people on like, you know, just being like in a sense a weak mindset, man. That victim mentality that you talk about is like, oh, you know what? I was raised with this card, just give me more free stuff. That social unbelief. And that is where I believe myself and people could disagree with me, but our goal is to make sure that we exemplify ourselves in our community and how we show up as leaders. That's where
100%.
I believe is like, hey, you know what? If you
It
say
starts with ourselves.
if you there we go. It's like if you believe that you're gonna help people out, our people, will start doing it.
Yeah.
Here, don't be showing me in social media. Show me what you're doing right now. Show me what you're doing exactly right now. And that's where I go back to you, bro, because I admire what you've done in the community. So I've never had any insight of like you like, oh, you know what? This guy's racist or anything.
Yeah.
You know, you could look like this guy from like, what's called Tennessee or Texas. That could be like, maybe he could be racist, but but here, what I've noticed is you've given back so much to the community.
Yeah.
You've given back so much to the community. You've helped out a lot of your members, and what you continue to do for in your company, you keep giving back, man.
Yeah.
You keep giving back. So what you're doing here, continue what you're doing. Now what you're thinking about globally,
Yeah.
I feel like right there as like I don't care what's happening in New York, and this is my perspective. I don't care what's happening there. I don't care what's happening like in other states. I care what's happening in my community, because in the reality, that's what really affects me. It affects
you're
my
not
people.
wrong.
It affects my family.
Yeah.
It affects my kids. But that's where I believe here. I just want to help out my people, and I feel like you're doing that yourself.
Yeah.
But going to globally, bro, I was in Japan, and I noticed that when I was in Japan, there's the little kids that are 6, and they take the bus by themselves because it's so safe.
Dude, we've talked a lot
Because it's so
of people recently about, because we've had a lot of members. I'm talking about dozens and dozens of people, members, friends who have all traveled to Japan this year, and they all come back with the same thing,
Bro,
which is, but if you think opposite of that, right? Japan is, again, take the word conservative away from the Republican identity.
Yeah.
And let's say conservative.
bro.
They're very conservative, right?
Yeah, bro.
But we look at just the conversation I was having with someone today, because they were criticizing my beliefs on socialism. And they were like, yeah, but look at Germany, Sweden, and they had named a couple other countries. And Canada, those ones, right? We look at the UK, we look at Germany, like, dude, they are, like, just alone last month, they arrested 12,000 people for making posts that the government didn't agree with on Instagram or on Facebook. Yeah. So we look at the mass, I don't know what words we're allowed to use here, but the mass rapings and stabbings and killings from people from third world countries that are being, flooded through the streets of their countries, those types of things. We look at that as a reflection of like, well, maybe we should like take a step back before we get to that point. Because they're like, yeah, but New York, it's not going to happen to the whole country. I know, but it didn't happen to the whole country for them in the beginning. Yeah. And so as they've stepped away from the more conservative values and they've gone down the hole of extremism, of whatever side you want to call it, it doesn't matter. But if you step away from those conservative values and you continually push and push and push and push, you end up there at some point in time. Yeah. And so I'm just worried that, I think that our country and our communities can get there if we don't take a step back and say, okay, let's look at everybody else. How's everybody else doing? Let's look at history. What has history provided us? And we can see what has successfully worked and what hasn't worked.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And I think that's I think that we lack the ability, again, this goes back to critical thinking, is that we lack the ability to critically think, okay, well, what is this going to lead us down? Mm-hmm. And so I think that's the issue, is that you look at a country like Japan, you can leave a $100 bill on a bar table. You could come back the next day, it's still going to be there, because their punishments are very harsh. Mm-hmm. And it's a very, like, you respect one another, you don't steal, you don't take, you don't do those things. And of course, people are going to pick apart certain little things of their culture that they do differently. That's their culture. Yeah. But in American culture, it's like, why do other people come here to America and then try to turn America into other places? Like, when America has done exceptionally well in the 250 years it's been around, in terms of innovation and growth and those things. And there are things that we do need to change. We definitely need reform in a lot of ways, because our forefathers couldn't have guessed that there would be social media and 400 million people in the country and those things. So we need reform, term max limits. You can't be in fucking office for 50 years at a time as a congressman, things like that. So we need reform in those ways. But I just think that as we get farther and farther away from what conservatism really is, again, saying conservatism is not glued to republicanism, seeing it as a whole of the family, the church, those type of things, or belief in God, and those, like, as we get farther away from those things, we get worse off as a country. Yeah. So that's just my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I feel like conservatism on my end. I feel like I growing up, bro. Like people if they don't know. I mean, I had a kid at 18, second kid at 19, different woman. So based on like if you look at me and you put it on paper, I'm not a conservative based on anything.
Yeah.
I'm more, I would say, more liberal, right? And as I grew up, I understood that that wasn't my parents' intention for me to go that route.
Yeah.
Right. So I had to live with that. And I see my kids growing up. I really understand what I have done as a father to lead them. And I'm trying to, right now, what I'm doing is I'm making different choices to make sure that I exemplify myself as a leader in the community,
Which is
but
great.
as a leader in my home.
Yeah.
So when I look at politics, I just look at it more as like, hey, I could be perceived by the color of my skin or where I come from, but I'm not either or. I try to stay in the middle because I have been kind of just, when I look at the right, I feel like, oh, shoot, yeah, it looks like it's the right way. And then when I look at the left, I'm like, it's looking way off where you go back to like what's going on. But then I look at the decisions that they're making. I'm just like, I don't know, man. Like,
Well, you're spot on, which is
Yeah.
it's about the decisions they're making, and which is why we've been very critical, Victoria and I, on the right, because the right has been very lackadaisical in their decision making,
Yeah.
but also they've been also very backhanded or backstabby, whatever you want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
where they've made decisions where it's like, dude, you fucking ran on the complete opposite of that.
Yeah.
This is not what we voted you to do,
Mm-hmm.
and so. I think that's where a lot of Americans, you'd be surprised. Luckily, the beautiful thing about a gym is we get to talk to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people a
Yeah.
day. And the majority of people feel the same way, where it's like, dude, this is not what any of us voted for.
Yeah.
And this is something where I was attacked a lot for people in the last year or last 6 months for saying, you fucking voted for this, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, hold up. Not once did I come at you and your family during COVID and said, look at what you fucking voted for. Look at all the money you gave to Ukraine. You voted for this. You wanted this. Like, no, you didn't vote for that, bro. You didn't want them to do those things. And so you have to uphold your view of someone, not based on them voting for someone and then that person turning around and doing something completely different. I don't base people on those things. And so if you're a liberal or if you're you're a Republican, it doesn't matter to me. I'm not saying that you voted for this person and now look at what happened, blah 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 blah. Especially if they turn around and they do the opposite of what you voted for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we get generalized a lot as like, you wanted this. It's like, well, no, I didn't fucking vote for this, dude.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we're very aggressive at saying this is bullshit. Because this is not what the fuck we voted for. We voted for isolationism to make America better and to stay the fuck out of everyone's business. And now look at where we're at. It's like the complete opposite. So I think I agree with you, which is like we just kind of just try to stay in the middle. And then when one side makes a move, we just determine if that was the right move or the wrong move. And then we decide our votes based on the actions that they're taking.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of how we go about it.
Yeah. And yeah, the direction that the country is going, I'm a little when I talk about my family, they're like, when I talk to my dad, they're a little bit more just on like the direction Mexico is going, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I go back to a lot of the Latinos is like most of the guys that come here, they're not thinking about what's best for America. They're thinking about what's best back home. And when I challenge
That's
them, it's
huge.
like when I challenge them, I tell them, it's like, hey, you know what? That's great. I understand that this is not your part, but when it comes down to the politics, why do you take it so personal? And some of the men in the industry and in the trades, they understand it. Some of the men, they're like, hey, you know what? Nobody went to Mexico, knocked on my door and said like, hey, you need to come to America. No, I came here for a opportunity.
Yeah.
I came here for a chance to change my family's life, and I'm taking a risk. And most of the men that I've worked around with, they understand. It's like, hey, bro, I don't know what's coming back. So they feel like, hey, you know what? If they take me right here, well, I need to make sure I'm back home. And I respect that because they're not like, hey, you know what? I'm going to change the laws. Nah, I'm going to try to figure out how I can make the most money here, take it back home, and that is my goal. And when they tell me that, I'm just like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what's going on here? They're like, hey, shoot, we just have to be more cautious. We just have to be more careful. We just have to understand that.
Yeah,
you know?
but that's accountability, though.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
this is
And
something
that's
I
what we
want
go
to
back
make
to.
sure that everyone understands this, because I've been very critical, especially when we saw people that were, fucking being kidnapped. And I hate to use the word kidnapped, but that were being taken from Home Depot and from these places that were being ran down and chased with no identification and those things, which I think was completely wrong. I reposted that. I was like, this is bullshit, blah, blah. This is not what we voted for. But let me make this clear, though, is that do I think it's wrong? Yes. But is it legally wrong? No. When you enter the country illegally, you break the law. And so what you're saying is these people who you work with, they understand that what they did was a risk. And so I think that we've gotten away from that, is that you may not like it, but if I break into your home, I don't think that is legal. Like that's an illegal thing to do. And so I 100% disagree the way they're going about it, the way that the ICE, the law enforcement, is being laid out, the way that they are the lack of communication, the lack of structure, the way they're doing the whole process, and some of the people they're going after is completely wrong. This is not what we voted for. This is not what we want. We just want motherfuckers that can just get on a podium, tell us exactly how they're going to lay this out, how they're going to do it. Oh, and then more importantly, a way for people to come here legally. The reason that no one has done anything left or right to fix the system is because once you fix the system, there's no problems anymore. And if there's no problems, you can't run as a president if there's no problems to fucking fix. So if you really think about that, that's why no one will fix the border situation. That's why no one will fix actual immigration where people can legally migrate from Mexico to come here and earn a citizenship quickly and efficiently. They won't fix that because then they have no problems to run on. But I think that people still, again, critical thinking, when you come here illegally, that is breaking the law. Now, whether I think it's right or wrong the way they deport you, I think it's wrong the way they're doing it. I think these ICE raids are wrong the way that they're going about them. And the way that they're identifying people and just grabbing people off the street. Do I think it's wrong? Yeah, that's labeling. That's, we're just, at that point. But at the end of the day, what they did to come here was technically breaking the law. Yeah. If I try to take residency in another country, you look at like my wife, Victoria, who, she's expressed that, what if she wanted to buy property back in Mexico? She couldn't do that. No. She was not born there. Yeah. She legally could not go there and do that. And so if you try to take residency in another country, that's just not how it works. So, but in America, it's like a free pass. Yeah. And I won't go down the road of what I think the ultimate plan was to bring millions and millions and millions of people here. But at the end of the day, what's legal and what's illegal, like, it is what it is, and I think the way they're going about it is completely wrong, and that's where people like automatically think that I'm some person who wants fucking all these crazy things. It's like, bro, I've been very critical of it because I don't think they're doing it the right way. I don't think they're doing it correctly. Yeah. So
some people would say it's like, oh, it's our land, it's a father's land and this and this. And
okay.
We could go
let me. I will say something about that because I there's one thing. Human nature is expansion. Yeah. For millions of years, people have taken other people's lands. Yeah. So wars, expansion, land purchases, that's part of the game. You guys don't understand it. We live in America, but if we said, oh, well, this is my land, well, China's going to be like, I'm going to fucking take it. Yeah. So you have to understand that, like, naturally as humans, we are going to take other people's lands. Yeah. And so it is what it is. Yeah. Like, that's just human expansion.
I agree with you there, David. That's where, like, I'm not going to argue that point because overall, but like I said, some people would say this, and this is where we go back to, like, kind of just accountability, just being able to stay accountable. Thankfully, my parents were able to get the amnesty during the Reagan administration. Some people, I know that it sucks because it's true. Some people are going through it, which I wouldn't know. But some people are going through the things that where, like, they've been here for a long time and they get, they get deported, but they've been here for like years.
And that's where bullshit. I feel like
I disagree 100%. Because they pay taxes, they pay this, and this is where I'm like, fuck, that's not right.
It's not right at all.
These people have been working here, paying their taxes, have been, and working hard.
It's bullshit.
And that's where I believe that's not okay. So
100%, bro.
So there is a lot of problems in our governance. My main goal was to sit down with you and talk about this because I've sat down with a couple members in my community, like, I've sat down with a couple people and I've gotten their perspective, but most of them have been mostly Latino, Hispanic. So they do some take it very emotional. Yeah. They take it like, hey, this is our people. Yeah, I'm going to stand against our people and our people. And then some are more like, man, well, they understand essentially just kind of just the logic part of it. We're coming from a different country. And a lot of the things that I always challenge people about is kind of like going back to Mexico. It's like Mexico is still considered a third world country. And I debate this all the time with my family members, bro, because my parents, my dad and my brother, we always talk a little bit about politics because we always,
you're males, and you get concerned about what's going on.
Yeah, we want to make sure we were, and overall, but just something that's always interesting, right? Because you always get different perspective. Yeah. Your brother read this, now that, and then it's like, oh shit, I never thought about it that way. Before it was like a heated debate. Now it's more like, oh shit, maybe he's right. Yeah. They look at Mexico and what they're doing and what's happening. I mean, I feel like if I base it off of like what I hear from the media, it's like a very socialist country. But as I start looking at it, it could become a very, very powerful country because it's alongside, United States, and how you alliance, U.S., Canada, and Mexico.
Well, see, that's how I feel about it. Is again, it goes back to the decisions, and it goes back to the grassroots decisions that we're making as citizens.
Yeah.
Is like, well, why are we not electing people? Like, we should be holding our congressional constituents accountable for, like, bro, Mexico is one of our most greatest alliances.
Yeah.
And again, I agree with you, like you were saying before, about like people who have been here for 10, 20, 30 years working, paying taxes. Like, why are those people not allowed to stay? Like, that's terrible. They're not. And why are we not taking, more time to create an alliance with Mexico and say, dude, let's fucking fast track their citizenship to America, because what they bring here is not only a lot of value, but again, they're conservative, not being tied to republicanism, but conservative in terms of the family, the home, they raise their children in a good way, very respectful people. So why are we not allowing ourselves to get closer to them in those ways? And going back to what you said is like, dude, like you look at them as a country as a whole right now, like just what's happened this week with that I don't know his name by heart, but he's that gentleman who was running for either mayor or for governor for a state.
Yeah, you're talking about the one that got killed?
Yeah, who was killed.
Yeah.
And because, the president of Mexico, she will not control the cartels, and so that type of thing is, why are we coming from that place and then trying to instill what's happening there to happen here, when if we just look clearly like in the mirror and say, look, like that's what's happening there is negative. Why would we want the same thing to happen here? And so I think that's a huge thing, is again, the critical thing is to take the emotional side of it. I get it that you are from there, that's your homeland, that type of thing, which is beautiful, dude. There's so much culture. What I love is that like every state has, as you and I have talked about this before, every state has their special abilities. Some people, they make cheese like Oaxaca, or chocolate, mole and those things. And then some places they're more leather makers, and I fucking think that is awesome. Cool. I fucking love
Artisans.
that. Exactly. They are. They're artists. But coming here, how do we take those things and apply those to American values? We still have to be able to have American values, because the laws and the systems, although they do need reform, have worked successfully up to this point. And I think the issue is that the reason they're not as successful and they need reform is because we become very lazy on actually holding people accountable. You shouldn't be able to commit multiple violent crimes and continue to be let out. You should not be able to steal and to do things to other people without being held accountable. So I think if we had stricter, tighter, go ahead.
Yeah, when you go that route, it's kind of like what we talk about, or what I talk about with my family, is you start looking at, okay, so Mexico is a little bit more socialist, right? And you kind of start looking at, and when I go back to like my parents' hometown, what I've realized is that it used to be very, very like machismo. Like, bro, they used to have arranged weddings. So there was arranged weddings. You used to see like, men just the woman, when they used to walk in, they couldn't
head down.
Head down. They couldn't even look at a man. They couldn't look anywhere else. And as you start growing now, it's like, now it's very, very similar to what we have here in the U.S. Like, a woman has a voice, the men have a voice, and so we mess around.
As you should. Again, we respect that humor. You should be able to have humor.
They're taking over. Now we have a president that's a woman.
But that's a whole nother story.
So it's funny, but you start seeing that we are changing as a society, right?
Yeah.
But when it goes back to like what you're talking about, kind of just like having harder laws, or just being able to have just stricter rules, right? Kind of just like going to school and everything that's going on, is like you look at now another perspective, which is El Salvador, how they were able to clean up everything. But
they
now
went from the most dangerous country to the safest country,
right? But now it's kind of like, it's considered, like how I see it, it could be a dictatorship.
Yeah, I understand that 100%.
And it goes back to like what China's doing, how they stay in power. And he just got signed on for another. He's going to be, I guess, the president again for another, what do they call it? Like,
amount of time.
Another amount of time. And this guy, the way that he's going, like, my girlfriend's from El Salvador. So what I tell her is like, hey, you know what? This guy could actually be in power for like 30 years. But
is he in power because he's writing himself into power, or because people are voting him into power?
Well, people are voting for him
because he's again, this goes back to leadership in our own communities and our own households, is that he says, I'm going to clean the streets up. I'm going to make it so you can walk at night and you don't have to worry about being killed or being robbed or those types of things. And he followed through with that.
Yeah.
And he did it in a way that's not corrupt or those types of things. And so all he did was say, these are our laws and we're actually going to enforce them. We should not have Congress left and right here being able to take foreign money from other places. Like we should, if you have a dual citizenship, you know, to another country, you should not be able to run for office at the lowest city council level all the way up to the presidency.
That's what they were talking about.
You have to be able to be affiliated and have alliance to the country that you're trying to run for, you know? And so that's something that I think is really important that we've lost here is like, dude, we are in America, and the opportunities that we have in America are because we're in America.
Too much freedom.
You know, I was telling somebody this morning something that like I was just kind of thinking through. I think a lot like try to deep think and critically think is, you know, when people, because I see the word equality being thrown around a lot, especially yes, because of the socialist, you know, the movement, and it's like, well, it's equality for everybody. Everyone deserves equality, but equality does not equal guaranteed outcomes. Equality equals guaranteed opportunity for yourself to create a better life. And so everyone is born with a different set of hands. You cannot control, like you said, you cannot control where you're born. You cannot control your parents, your family, the circumstances you're born into. Yeah. But in America, you should have the opportunity to create a better life for yourself, which we do here. Yeah. And other places, especially in places that are not a democratic republic, you don't have the ability to do that. Yeah, and so what people are voting for is a guaranteed outcome. Guaranteed outcome leads to a lower quality of life for all of us, because the decisions that I've made, this is something my wife and I talk about a lot, the sacrifices and the things that her and I do on a daily basis is what gets us to the place that we want to get to in life. Yeah. And so because the sacrifices that I'm making, I'm not spending money on vacations. I'm not running up my credit card bill. I'm not the one spending money on designer bags and those things. Dude, yesterday I fucking woke up at 5, worked all day long, got out, you know, finished at 5, and then went over to my other location and worked until 8 o'clock at night. I didn't see my family all day, you know, and so there's the sacrifices. So why is it unfair? Why is it fair that if my business makes a certain amount of income, the government can take that and give that to somebody else who doesn't make those sacrifices? And so your equal opportunity for greatness is what equality is, but not guaranteed outcomes. We should not be guaranteed equal outcomes because people make decisions that will benefit themselves or will negatively impact themselves. And so that's something I just thought through, that people, they just want guaranteed equal outcomes. That's just not life, bro. It's not fair that I've worked my fucking ass off and you made the decisions you've made, the decisions I've made, and yet you get the same outcomes that I get because I've worked and given back to my community, to my team, to my family, to my friends, and yet you fucked off this entire time and you get all the things that were taken from me from the government. Yeah. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, bro. What I got from it is this is like a jewel right here for everybody out there. Equal opportunity for greatness. And that's like, for me, bro, that's fuck. That's a gem right there.
Well, dude, people come here from other countries. What do they come here for? They never say they come here for the free things. They come here for the opportunity.
That's it.
We have the opportunity for greatness. But it's not guaranteed greatness. Yeah. And you may work your ass off and my business may fail tomorrow, but guess what? I have the opportunity after that to still come back. Yeah. So you always have the opportunity to work towards greatness. Yeah. But we should not have guaranteed outcomes. Because then at that point, you have no accountability. Because you can just do whatever the fuck you want, and you're all guaranteed the same outcome, you know? And then that leads us down a whole host of other issues.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like you go into kind of just how big the government thinks and how just like the biggest business overall is the government, and how you start looking at like socialism and communism. And you go back to like where I think about stuff like that, you go into kind of like the Communist Manifesto, how they created systems to make sure that people understand that system is you're either going to rely on. Yeah. So they rely on it so much that they can continue to vote in them, but they're like constrained to just this belief. Yes. And when you look at like the opportunity that you have here in the United States is the opportunity of capitalism and starting your own business. And it's true, because if I look at it now, bro, like my dad was able to sacrifice everything that he knew back home. Mm-hmm. He was a shepherd, come here and be able to just, you know, sacrifice everything that he knew and make sure that he changes his legacy for us. So he gave us a stepping stone to make sure that we have an opportunity that we wouldn't have had back home.
Yes.
You know, and that's a risk that he took. And that's a risk that people continue to take. Like people that are here, and if your family are from immigrant parents, all I could tell you guys is that your family took a risk and you continue to do the same things that are constraining yourself instead of continue to sacrifice for your family and change your legacy and create an opportunity for yourself for greatness. And I think that people don't understand that, bro.
Yeah,
People
but
don't
yeah.
take that to heart and really understand that your family sacrificed so much so you could be sitting at home or so you could be doing stuff like that, bro. Stop. And I take this personal to like with my people is like, bro, like go do something for yourself.
Yeah.
Because your family sacrificed so much. Go do something for yourself. Go do the hard stuff. Go sacrifice.
Yeah.
Go like, you know.
Well, dude, that leads us down. We can talk about a little bit about business and other things, and like, you know, that leads us down the path of why so many people are depressed and non-fulfilled. Is that like the boring stuff we talked about at the beginning of the podcast is the boring things, accomplishing the boring things and doing the things and achieving greatness. That's what is fulfilling. It's not the achievement of having the car. It's not the end goal, but it's accomplishing the goal and then setting a new goal and then accomplishing that goal and setting that new goal, taking the risk and doing the thing. You know, like people always forget that, like, you know, Victoria's father, he was an illegal immigrant. And he came here and he went to Idaho first and he became a masonry worker. And unfortunately, he's no longer with us. But same thing, he took that risk to come here and to do that. He didn't finish past third grade from Mexico. My family, my mom's side of the family came here in the 40s. So it's not like we haven't lived here for, you know, hundreds and hundreds of years. And so it's not like, you know, you are given, again, a guaranteed outcome, but people have come before you and sacrificed. And so it's crazy to me that people come from those families and then they come here and they're looking for a guaranteed outcome. But it's like, no, the reason you came here was to take the risk for greatness, for the opportunity to be better. And so, like you said, it's something that a lot of people take to heart because we have the opportunities for those things. Mm-hmm. And so people come here and then they expect they should be given. Mm-hmm. You don't come here with an expectation to be given something. You come here with the risk for the opportunity to earn that outcome. And that's what I think people are so caught and twisted. And it's the same thing in business. It's like you and I didn't start businesses because we were guaranteed to become successful. We started businesses because we understood that there was a risk involved in being self-employed. Nobody calls you in the morning or tells you to get up and to have one-on-one meetings with your team and talk to your leaders and to clean the floors and to do the things and to buy the trucks and secure the assets. Like, nobody has told us to do those things. We have to force ourselves to do those things. And so we took that risk as self-employed people, as business owners, because we understood there was a possible outcome of greatness if we put the effort in for it. We earned it.
Yeah. I agree with you. I mean, right now, where I'm going with this is just kind of like where I see is more, or what I saw in our community. And I tell this, basically, I don't know if you saw it, you growing up, you know, because I don't know how if you have a lot of family members
We have
here.
a very small family.
Yeah, very small, right?
Family,
Yeah, I know that you've told me. But what I see in our culture, and this is what I tell you, is like I'm really strong about it because I saw it in our own culture, you know, and I saw it in myself because it's passed down. So I'm not like this holy person to tell you, oh, you know, I'm any different. When I was growing up, and I tell this to my brother, Jared, you know Jared, right?
Yeah, that's my boy right there.
And I tell him, I was like, hey, bro, you know, growing up, at times I felt envy. At times I felt envy towards somebody that had something because that's what I was like. That's what was taught in our culture, or that's what you saw in our culture, right?
Yeah.
If somebody's doing it, like, fuck, he did this or he that. And as I started growing up and start developing myself as a leader and surrounding myself with people that think differently, which thankfully, man, I'm grateful that I have surrounded myself with a lot of good friends and a lot of good people that have thought differently. And when I look at people like that, it just gives me an inspiration. It gives me an inspiration that, hey, you know what, your family came here and that's, you know, you didn't ask for it.
Yeah.
You know, you were born into it and you are continuing to inspire people. And that's what people have to look at. Like, people look at you and they should be inspired to be able to obtain something or be able to achieve something. Yeah. And I think anybody that's out there putting themselves, their face out risk, being able to sit down and be like, hey, man, that's pretty badass. That's pretty dope. And create an inspiration in the stuff. And I just have in mind inspiration, admiration. Inspiration because it
I love that,
inspires
yeah.
that fire in you. But like, hey, you know what? I thought about sitting down with somebody, or I thought about a podcast, or I thought about doing this. I thought about starting a business.
Yeah.
Hey, this guy inspired me to go do it. It doesn't mean that you're gonna admire what he does or admire who he is or anything.
Yeah, that's a really good. I like that saying.
Yeah. So when you look at that, man, it just should create a sense of inspiration because at the end of the day, that's in reality what you should see when somebody's when you see a leader. What I heard. What I learned was like some people, when they see a leader come in, some people are going to be envious, and the other leaders around, they're going to look at the leader and they're going to be inspired.
Well, I think naturally we're as people. Again, this goes back to like the natural tendencies of humans.
Oh, there we go.
And I see it. I see it with other gym owners, right? Like I see it with other people, and I'm like, look at what they have, and very quickly I'm very, like, well, they came from a rich family or they had this investment or blah blah, and so I'm very quickly am I had to snap out of that. And one thing I told someone who's another gym owner, I helped him open a gym in the Midwest, and I didn't help him financially, but I helped him with like his lease and with a bunch of stuff. And, he told me one day, he's like, I have this competitor near me and they have more members and blah, 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 blah. And I was telling him about a local competitor that came in, here locally to us that we were competing against. And I go, yeah, bro, but that's not fair to compare yourself to him. I said, it's not fair to you. It's not fair to him. Mm-hmm. It's not fair that he's put in 10 more years than I have. He's put in more work. I don't know how much sacrifice he's made. I don't know what development he's done with his people, his team, his organization. So how is it fair for me to say, oh, well, I deserve that? Well, I don't know what the fuck he's done. It's not fair. It's not fair to him that I'm jealous. Mm-hmm. And secondly, the second part of that is, it also is, like you said, it's inspiring because then I go, well, fuck, if he did it, I can do it.
That's it.
So if he did it, I can do it. And so I quickly always try to remind myself of those two things is like, it's not fair to him that I'm saying it's not fair that he's done that. Well, it is. I don't know his sacrifices, his background. And guess what? If he fucking did get born into $100 million, well, guess what? That was the hand he was dealt. It is what it is. Yeah. It gives me more fire up my ass to go fucking beat him. Yeah. But also, it also is inspiring because I'm like, well, dude, if that guy was a hometown hero, why can't I be? Yeah. Why can't we take that same dream of owning, the businesses that we do, and I can do just as good. Yeah. And so those are my two perspectives on that is, don't be jealous because it's not fair to the other person with how much work they've put in. Mm-hmm. And then also it's not fair to yourself that you don't feel that you can't do the same thing that they're doing. Mm-hmm. So, I think those are two important perspectives that this is something that I have to remind myself every day. It's not something that like I just had when I started. It's like 6 years in, which isn't very long. I still remind myself every day. And social media crushes our soul sometimes, and I have to remind myself like it's not fair to myself, not fair to them. Like we have to give ourselves the opportunity for greatness.
Yeah. Well, what would you say to some people that are probably like fair? Like what's fair? Maybe it's not fair. This it's not fair. That would you say that's the victim mentality?
Yeah, 100%, bro. Yeah. Like, dude, like growing up, like you want to go back to like growing up, like, dude, I was never allowed. I was denied from all scholarships in high school. I got one scholarship that was academic based, but I wasn't allowed to do any of the summer programs. I wasn't allowed to do any of the scholarships. I wasn't allowed to apply for financial aid. Because my parents were married and had a college degree. How is it my fault that my parents came here as well? Yeah, they didn't come here in the last decade, but my family, moved here in the 1940s, and they've done better for themselves. My grandpa wasn't a billionaire; he owned liquor stores, and so he owned liquor stores in the valley. And so, how is it fair that I'm not allowed to apply for these things, even though I have the merit for it, a meritocracy? I have the merit for it, but because it was clearly because I was white. Like some of them you could not apply to because you were white. Yeah. But there's no scholarships.
We got too many of you guys.
Apparently, bro. Apparently around here, huh? So I couldn't do that, and I couldn't apply to it because my parents were married. Some of them I couldn't apply to because my parents had college degrees. Those types of things. But my wife, Victoria, who we were dating at the time, we've been together for 14 years now, she was allowed to apply to all of those things. But I didn't sit there and say, oh, it's no fucking fair. It is what it is, bro. It is what it is. And so, but like as soon as you can put that past you, it is what it is. Just get the fuck over whatever situation you're in and think about, okay, and that's where successful business owners have taught me is like, dude, I fucking walk in and we have toilets clog and we have fucking ceiling leaks and we have, fire sprinklers that fucking we had to install that cost me a lot of money. You just say, fuck it. The situation is what it is. How are we going to figure this out? Yeah. Now, it does me no good by sitting and crying and saying, oh, wow, this is not fair. You know, yeah, you can be upset for 10, 15 minutes. I get pissed off. But how the fuck do I get past this? Mm-hmm. And that's really where, like, it's a victim mentality, bro. Yeah. So you just, dude, we're all dealt different hands. It fucking is what it is, dude. You know, we live in Wainini where right next to us kids are born into Section 8. Yeah. And where I live, I'm in, you know, middle America, if you want to call that. And there's people on the beach who are born into hundreds of millions of dollars who are movie stars, kids. Dude, and guess what? We all go to the same fucking high school. We all have the same fucking opportunities. Yeah. And so it's like, you just have to get over it. Just get over yourself, bro, and fucking, you know, get out of your victim mentality mindset. Like, that's basically it.
And what would you say to people that, like, right now, like, let's say we're talking to the younger generation, somebody that's 18, 19, you know, just got out of high school, and they're watching this and they're thinking, it's like, well, I don't know much about politics. Should I even get involved into politics? I don't know much about business. What should I do to be able to start my business? And what would you say is the most important thing for them to start on so they can start, you know, making a change in their community if they wanted to do that, or making they get inspired and they want to start doing something themselves and they want to inspire people? What would you say is something that that would help them, David?
I would say the first thing is get physically fit. And I'm not saying that, I'm talking from someone who was extremely overweight at some point, who I was always kind of a heavier set kid. Then I was skinny when I started working out. And then I gained all my weight back even more. And then now where I am is, I would say that getting physically fit gives you the confidence to really give you the extra edge on top of anybody else. But more importantly, it gives you that, like, that little push to, like, when you walk into a bank to secure a loan, or when you walk in to shake somebody's hand or to sign a customer up, you feel better about yourself. And so I would say, like, first off, set yourself up for success by being physically fit. That's what I would say. That's huge. And then the second thing is whatever you decide to do, just make sure it provides value to somebody. That's the most important thing. Is that if you want to, you know, start a detailing business, or if you want to start a painting business, or if you want to start, you know, whatever, a taquero, whatever it might be, how are you providing value to somebody? And is the value you're providing to somebody, is it something that everybody else can do? And if so, how are you going to make it extra special on top of that? And that's more speaking to my business owners here. That's more of a business lesson. But and if you want to get into politics, what I would say is do fucking something with your life first. Whether it's for 4 years or 6 years or 10 years or 20 years, go fucking accomplish something. Because the people who are in office right now, the people who have been, you know, multi-generational politicians, are the motherfuckers fucking everything up, because they've never had to step out and actually accomplish something. And so why do you think so many people voted for Trump? Whether he's a shitbag or not, because I'm not a fan of him. Why do you think? Because his ability to go out and do things and to create the life that he has gave people inspiration, you know? And so go do something with your life. So whether that means, you know, you self-employed or you're a business owner, or go be the best employee for a team, go be the best manager you can be, is go do something productive first and prove that you have the willingness to stick something through and to be successful. And then from there, you know, take it. If you want to go open a business, you want to be a politician, you want to go be the best dad, go be the best mom. Like but stick to something and follow through with it and become really, really good at it and provide value through it.
All right. And for people that probably going through that, right, and this is going through the struggles that you probably went through, like that victimhood mentality, or that because we've all been through it. I've been through it.
Yeah, we're all victims at one point, bro.
Yeah. You start victimizing yourself, or you start like, you know, you start doubting yourself. How do you overcome it? Other than, you know, what you just mentioned, or would you say that's about it? What lessons did you have to learn that has shown you, like, you know what, I'm not a victim?
You know what? One of my favorite sayings is the work comes before the confidence. Is that the work has to come first before you build the confidence in anything else. So a lot of times we find ourselves in this victim mentality of, like, I'm not good enough, or this is the place I am. Well, you have no confidence. You have no belief in yourself. The work comes before the belief or the confidence. So you can't build that belief or get out of that victim state without just putting one foot in front of the other. You have to. You see it with people who are overweight. They always sit there and they have this excuse and this excuse and this excuse, and all of a sudden they lose like 5 pounds, and they start like getting momentum, and it's 20, and then it's 50, and then it's 100, and they go turn around and they go, man, you see that fat ass over there? Man, that guy's a pussy. It's like, well, bro, you were there. Yeah. You have that same victim mentality. Yeah. But what changed? You worked, and then you built the confidence to dig yourself out of that hole of victim mentality. And so you have to work, bro. If you don't work, you're not going to build that belief in yourself.
Yeah. Put in the work.
So, yeah. And then without, you know, I mean, dude, I doubt myself on a daily basis with our projects, with everything. But the work still has to happen. We still keep the list down of things we have to mark off every single day. Yeah. And at the end of the day, most of the time when you mark that shit off, you have more belief in yourself when you mark those things off. Yeah. So I would definitely say the work comes before your confidence or your belief in yourself.
So last couple questions that I have for you, David.
Let's run
just
it.
rapid questions. Just tell me what your thoughts are.
Cool.
Just name a couple people and you tell me what you think.
Cool.
All right. Gavin Newsom.
Fucking dirtbag. Okay. I think he's a liar.
He's a liar.
Yeah, I think he's really, really good at speaking. And again, we go back to actions and solutions.
Yeah.
He has provided no solutions with no actions.
Okay.
So.
All right, sounds good. I said a few words, but you
that
went ham. You went ham.
Oh, I could go a lot longer. That's a few in my brain for that, dude.
All right. Donald Trump.
Donald Trump?
Yeah.
I think he has been, I don't want to say backstabber.
Yeah.
But he's misled us. I'll just say that he's misled us.
Okay. J.D. Vance?
I've never liked J.D. Vance.
No?
I got nowhere.
Okay.
From the very beginning, I didn't like him as a pick. I think that he's a phony. I think he's a plant.
Really?
From the very beginning, I never liked J.D. Vance. And I got members here that will attest to that who said, bro, I listened to this podcast of J.D. Vance. I'm like, I don't like him. I'm very big on trusting your gut feeling, and I just do not trust him.
Okay.
I do not trust J.D. Vance.
Charlie Kirk?
I was never a fan of him. I never followed him.
Yeah.
I think that he opened up free speech, and I like that he would have dialogue with people.
Yeah.
But I also think that he pick and chose his opponents and some of the kids that he would post on Instagram, and I think that created a lot of hate on him because he would definitely pose his social media so he would win most of his conversations. So,
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Well, and I think, and now talking about his situation, what happened to him, I think the entire thing is a setup.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you heard of Nick Fuentes?
Yes, I have. Dude, who hasn't fucking heard of Nick Fuentes, bro? He's crazy, bro. I mean, he says some things that are definitely outlandish that I don't agree with. But he also says some things that are pretty spot on. But I mean, I think he's a character, and he plays his role as a character very well.
Okay. Kamala Harris.
I think that she's a plant as well. I would think she's a plant like J.D. Vance on the other side.
When you say a plant, what like
she has no mental basis. She couldn't answer basic questions. She wasn't posed to actually make decisions. She was the face of people that were pulling strings behind her.
And then, who would you say is the best president in your opinion? Who would you say based on like what you history? Like who's your favorite president or best president?
There's a couple different ones. I think George Washington. I think his selflessness. He didn't want to be a president, and he was forced to become president. Okay. And I think his selflessness. I mean, he was a man who led battle and would kill motherfuckers, and he didn't care. I think JFK. Okay. I think the reason he was assassinated was a huge one, and we won't go into the backstory of that, but he was one that was actually willing to step up and actually make a change for the better in America, and I think that's why he was killed. I would definitely say after JFK, I don't think that even Reagan, I don't think that we've had a president that's been true to America.
Got it.
Left and right, all of them.
What do you think about PBD? Patrick Bet-David.
You know what? Honest to gosh, dude, I don't really listen to his stuff. Okay. I like the fact that he's not afraid to live debate people. He has people on his show, and he will live debate that. And I have respect for people who will put themselves on camera and not cut scenes to make them look better. Yeah. So I do appreciate that. But honest to God, like I have a lot of friends listening to him. I don't have the time in the world to listen to everybody, and I just don't listen to his stuff very much. That's all.
Andy Frisella.
I mean, he's. Besides my mom, my dad, and my wife, he's the most impactful person in my life. There's just no doubt about that. Okay. I mean, I literally have taken, from the time I was in high school, I've implemented almost every single thing that he's taught through his podcast, through his books, through his arete, the last couple of years. And I would say that I have become successful because of him. Okay. Like, there's no doubt about it.
All right, bro.
Absolutely. Through 75 hard, through everything.
Seriously. All right. Sweet, bro. Well, that's it. That's it for me.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say thank you for having me on, bro.
Yeah.
So it's been definitely a different podcast than what I usually do. So I really appreciate, being able to dive into topics that, a lot of people are very touchy on and allowing us to have like a real full. I hope that if anybody listens to this, I hope they listen to the whole conversation and not clips of it. So
hell yeah, bro.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Bro.